Hi guys, this video is intended to be a quick recap of the basics of muscles just to make sure you're completely familiar with what they do and how they work. So, we are aware that muscles contract. When they do this, they exert a force on our skeleton, allowing us to move. But they also have several other important jobs in the body, such as narrowing the blood vessels to control blood pressure or to expand and contract the iris of your eye so as to vary the amount of light that can actually get in there, maybe to protect your eye from overstimulation from too much light. And your heart is also a muscle, and this contracts and relaxes between 60 to 90 times a minute for your entire life. One of the definitions of death is the fact that that muscle has stopped working. And there's something else that muscles do. They relax, and this allows them to be pulled back out from their contracted state. And we can demonstrate this relatively easily. Now, a really nice way to illustrate this can be done just using the desk in front of you. If you put your hand palm facing upwards on top of the desk and push downwards, you can kind of trick your arm into trying to straighten itself out whilst you're blocking it, so you can see what's going on in your arm while it's not moving. So if I'm pushing down, I can feel that my bicep is relatively relaxed. Okay? It's squidgy, there's not much actual resistance when I push into it. But if I go for my tricep on the other side here, this is now contracted, it's trying to pull my arm straight. So this muscle is shortening, it's trying to pull itself in, it's trying to pull this bone around to straight. And you can feel that. If you push down, you can feel it actually tensing and pulling it down. So this one has to be relaxed to allow itself to be stretched out. If I reverse that though, if I put this arm now on the bottom and push upwards, now I've got a tense bicep, okay? That is now trying to pull this bone upwards, it's attached here, it's pulling it up, and this tricep is now squidgy and relaxed so long as I'm pushing upwards. You've got to keep pushing upwards for that to feel squidgy. So that illustrates exactly how antagonistic pairs of muscles work. One is contracted whilst it tries to act, the other one is relaxed, allowing itself to be stretched back out, to be pulled back out into a longer form. And then, obviously, when you go the other way, the one that was relaxed is now contracting, pulling itself shorter, pulling on those bones, and the muscle on the other side is allowing itself to be stretched back out. So it's really a pattern of contract and relax, and then to switch, relax and contract. Okay. So here we have the same thing that we've just been looking at, but this time we've stripped away the skin so you can see the muscle underneath. And we're going to be moving this arm from the 90 degrees it's currently at to match the dotted line that you can also see on the diagram. To do that, we need the biceps to contract. Now when the biceps is contracting, all those muscle fibers that are running through your muscles are going to start pulling over each other, and that's going to cause the muscle to shorten. And that means the tendon that's attached to the bone at the bottom of the screen is going to be putting force on that bone and pulling it upwards. It also means that as a result the biceps is going to swell outwards. But at the same time, on the other side of your bone, the triceps has to relax, and that means those muscle fibers, those exact same muscle fibers, are going to have to let go of each other, and that means that they're going to have to allow themselves to slide over each other and stretch out. That's what relaxing of the muscle means. And that's why whenever you work these kind of muscles, what we call an antagonistic pair, they have to work in opposition, and that would result in the lower arm being raised. But it's a little bit more complicated than that. All these different jobs in the body need different types of muscles, so we're going to have to pick apart all the different types of muscles. And we're going to start off really just examining in more detail those muscles we've just been looking at, the ones that are attached to your bones, the skeletal muscle. Now, skeletal muscle can have a couple of different jobs it needs to do. And the first type of skeletal muscle fiber, because it can be split into two types of muscle fiber, we're going to talk about fast twitch muscle fibers. Now, most of your muscles contain some fast twitch muscle fibers, and these are there to respond quickly and with a lot of power. I mean, the name really says it all. So these are for your sprinters, these are for rapid reaction, incredibly powerful response. But unfortunately, they also fatigue very quickly. They spring into action so quickly, burn through the energy that's there very quickly. They have to switch to anaerobic respiration. They make a lot of lactic acid, and so they're very quickly fatigued. So on their own, they're not really very good. But for that particular job, fantastic. So if we want to move a bit more slowly, we're going to rely more on another type of fiber, which, you guessed it, is called a slow twitch muscle fiber. Slow twitch muscle fibers respond with less power, they respond with less immediacy, but they can last a lot longer. Because they're not operating at such a high level, they don't burn through their supplies of ATP quickly, they can keep aerobic respiration going for longer, so they're not going to tire as quickly. Obviously, if you're running for a long time and your muscles aren't in particularly good shape, you will eventually get lactic acid buildup and you will still tire, but hopefully you can see there why within your skeletal muscle you're going to need both fast twitch muscle fibers and slow twitch muscle fibers. And it's really important that you get those two sorted out in your head. The next type of muscle I want to talk about is called smooth muscle. And you find smooth muscle all through your body, in the blood vessels, it's found in the iris of your eye, and it's also found in your digestive system, where it works by a series of contractions to basically squeeze your food through the various pipes. And it's a very, very slow acting muscle. It's very much like slow twitch muscle fibers, not particularly snappy. It's going to work relatively gently and move things through, so it doesn't get fatigued very easily. Now they're usually found around the outside of a circle or around the outside of a pipe, and they control the aperture of that circle, if you like. So with your digestive system, certain muscles contract behind the food, pushing it forward, and then other muscles can contract to open it up. So let's have a look at exactly how that works, and I think a nice example of that would be to go to the iris of the eye. So here we can see your eye, and you can see the iris, but we can't really see the muscles, so I'm going to drop an overlay on top of this admittedly not particularly brilliant diagram. Now here you can see we've got two lots of muscles within the iris. We've got these circular ones that circle all the way around it, rather easily called circular muscles, and we've got these straight ones that are coming away from the pupil towards the edge of the iris along the radius of the circle, and they're called radial muscles. And they work antagonistically. So at this stage we've got the pupil contracted, this would be in bright sunlight, and as a result the circular muscles are very, very contracted, they're thicker because of this, and the radial muscles have been stretched outwards, which is why I've drawn them on this diagram as appearing thin. But if we then walk into a darkened room, we need that situation to change. And that's what's happened here. Here we can see now the radial muscles have contracted, they've become shorter, they've pulled the pupil out towards the edge of the iris, and as a result they've got thicker. The circular muscles, because they've been stretched outwards into thinner circles, they're now relaxed and they're now more spread out, and I've drawn them now as thinner lines as well. So that's how you control the amount of light going into your eye, and that's a completely involuntary response. And it's very difficult to gain voluntary control of these muscles. Most smooth muscles, in fact, in your body will be under involuntary control. Another example of smooth muscles can be seen on this next image, and what we've got here is a thin layer of your skin with the blood vessels coming up into it. So here we've got the layer of the skin, and just down here we've got some smooth muscle within the lining of a blood vessel, and you can see that at the moment they're circular muscles. They work the same way as the muscles in the iris we just looked at, so they'll be circular and radial muscles. Circular muscles are contracted, and they're not really letting very much blood up there. There's still some getting up there, that's why I've drawn those pale lines. And your body really uses this to control how much heat you lose. And this is called vasoconstriction, constriction of the vessels. You can hear it in the name. And it results pretty much in less heat being lost by your skin. So this is why you tend to have pale skin when you're in the cold. But if we therefore become overheated, we need to alter this again. So the next diagram that you can now see shows us what happens when we get overheated. So now we've dilated those blood vessels, and for this reason we call it vasodilation. The radial muscles have contracted, the circular muscles relaxed, and that allows more blood to the surface of the skin, which means that we're now going to lose more heat from the surface, which will keep us cool. And for that reason, that's what you will appear flushed when you're overheated. This also happens in the cheeks when we're embarrassed, which is why you blush. Now the final type of muscle we're going to look at is the cardiac muscle, the muscle of the heart. And this is particular in two very, very specific ways. One, it's myogenic. All nervous transmission for cardiac muscle originates in the heart. It has its own set of pacemaker cells that control your heartbeat. Now if they do get out of whack, you may have heard of people with pacemakers, which is where you basically put in another signal to control the beat of the heart. And your cardiac muscle is really the only muscle that is myogenic in the body. All the muscle is under nervous control from neurons, and we call that neurogenic. So your skeletal muscle and smooth muscle that we looked at earlier, they're neurogenic. The cardiac muscle also never fatigues, and that's quite important because if it ever fatigued, you would die. So hopefully you feel a bit more informed about muscle types. It's particularly important that you pay attention to your different types of skeletal muscle. So your fast twitch, your slow twitch, your smooth muscle, which behaves in a lot of ways like slow twitch muscle, and cardiac muscle, which doesn't fatigue and generates its own nervous impulses. I hope you found this video entertaining, or at least informative, and I hope you'll view the next video in the series.